Technology.
Woohoo! So we are live here on our first episode of Running West Home. How are you feeling?
I'm ready. I think
ready?
A little nervous, but not that nervous.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I feel the same way.
All right.
Awesome. So which one of us should go?
Why don't you go ahead and go
You
first?
want me to go first?
Yeah, why don't you go first?
All right. Hi, everybody. So my name's Carolee. I go by the Gosh Darnzilla on Twitch and Twitter and all those other places. What else should I say about myself?
So we're going this pretty raw here. Maybe I should introduce you and you should introduce me. That's a cool idea. I like
That's
this.
a good idea.
We're doing it live.
Okay.
So Carolee is a former paper crafter, current paper crafter, but former professional paper crafter and a training life coach.
Yeah.
And I think that's the stuff we really want to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess you can introduce me.
And this is Ryan, aka Morello. And he is currently a design lead on a project that's not yet announced at Riot Games.
Yeah. And
anything else?
Yeah, I think it's like, so kind of like, okay, so that's us, so why are we here?
Yeah,
right?
First and foremost, I wanted to talk about why is it called Running West Home?
Oh yeah.
Like that's so weird, right? So West Home is actually a street we found here in LA where we live.
It's a real street name.
It's a real street.
That's right.
Hello, World Gigs. Hello to everybody in chat. We will be checking chat and probably commenting on it from time to time. But we have a tendency to go on tangents. Mm-hmm. And so we might go through the tangent and then get back to chat. So,
for example, this tangent.
For this tangent, exactly. So West Home is a real street here in LA. And when we drove past it, I think I turned to you and was like, that sounds like that shitty second zone that you have to run in every MMO. Mm-hmm. You know, you've just gotten to the point where you're like, okay, I've got a good set of spells, a basic set of spells. Now it's time to go beyond that first zone.
I'm not swatting boars with a stick anymore. I have
you have
power,
stronger
right?
bows.
Yeah, exactly.
You have stronger boars to swat at. Maybe a goblin of some kind. But yeah, I mean, and that zone, when you think about it, is new, but not necessarily very exciting.
Mm-hmm. I think Lobo called out the right
Westfall,
reference. Exactly. Westfall, I think, is what's in my head when I think of West Home. It's real brown.
Yeah.
The monsters aren't super. Yeah. Go forth, run to West Home, gather me 20 cracked bills. That's about right, you know.
Exactly.
And 5 gizzards of something, some sad animal.
Some poor animal is going to get just destroyed.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of it is like, if you think about that zone, we kind of like, it became kind of this framework for us because like, if you think about that zone, you always run it.
Yeah.
Why? And it's not because it's the most exciting. It's not because it's the most fun. It's not because what you're looking forward to. It's not that end game content. It's your path there. Yeah. Right. And so it's efficient XP. It's important. It's what you do if you're trying to win, and you kind of gotta tuck and roll, tank it up, and just get through it. And at the end, you'll be stronger at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So we kind of thought that really resonated with both of us. And West Home was also just a really funny thing to say. So we ended up liking it.
Yeah. It's kind of, and then we kind of looked at it another way, which is like, if you look at life, it kind of is like that second zone. So, you know, you have to run it no matter what. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of choose how you're going to run it. You can kind of choose whether you're going to have fun in it or not.
Right.
But that's all ultimately a choice that you get to make. And so that's kind of one of the things that we were kind of seeing as another analogy for that second zone. Mm-hmm. You have to run it. You don't have a choice. You can stay there forever if you want.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's your choice. And I think what you're saying is really important is it's your choice how you perceive it. Like if we think about, you know, West Home or Westfall or what's the zone outside EQ? All those zones, they're all kind of the same zone,
also
right?
That drop water.
Yeah, that's right. Those zones, they're not fun on their own. They're not like this exciting thing, but you can choose to make it fun.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a lot of what we're going to talk about. It's not only making it fun, but making it bearable and making sure you're getting the most out of West Home.
Yeah, exactly.
So, hold on. I am going to mute our
computer
desktop so it doesn't sit there and go every time it thinks our video settings are off. So, So yeah, we think that's a lot of it is a lot of what we thought our takeaway was and what we've learned over 10 years plus, just even talking the time we've been together.
Yeah.
Is
it's a long time.
So much of it is about the perspective going into this.
Yeah.
How do you look at this situation?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Red Larch? Wow, what a good reference for I'm running Prince of the Apocalypse right now. So I like that reference. But yeah, so that your kind of perspective on how you approach Westholme
mm-hmm.
is really a lot of if you're going to be successful or not in it and what you're going to learn out of it.
Yeah.
So that's what we really want to go into with this whole series. And it's kind of using this framework of bringing something a little bit more neutral, I think, to the language of relationships, communication, self-improvement, things that if you think about it in your brain's really stubborn at resisting.
Yeah.
People are not great. Myself, yourself, you guys.
Yeah.
As human being creatures, as animals, we're not awesome at accepting and understanding change. Right. So we kind of need to have frameworks and stuff to make it more tolerable, more palatable for a lot of us. And that's what we think we're going to try to bring here in this weekly series.
Yeah. And so one of the things that is kind of, now that we've kind of gotten into what is Westholme and kind of how we view it, there's some critical phrases that I think we're going to start out with today. And that concept is HP and MP. But first, I want to go into a story. And this is where it gets slightly real, if you don't mind.
This story will get real.
Yeah, it will get real from time to time because both of us are like chronic oversharers. So we have no problem sharing our personal lives and what we've gone through with all of you. So I want to say, what was it, like 6 or 7 years ago?
I think I'd say 7-ish. Yeah, let's call it 7.
Okay, that was a really long time ago, y'all.
If you're going where I think you're going.
Yeah. So our marriage was not good. We were talking about getting divorced. Mm-hmm. We were really struggling, and there was a lot of emotion and baggage and just garbage that we were carrying into our conversations with each other. And so we just weren't understanding each other. And then one day, I think I said the magic words.
You did.
Which was, sorry, dude, I can't. My HP is low. And when that happened, you were like, oh my gosh, I understand that.
Yeah. And we kind of, it felt like almost like serendipitous because we were in a really rough spot at that point with just learning about how we handle stuff and everything. And what we found we were doing is the kinds of arguments or the kinds of disagreements or the things that were challenging for us were things that we couldn't even address effectively. We didn't have any shared language. We didn't have any shared approach. It's like you're trying to explain it, but you're kind of explaining it through your point of view, and I'm receiving it through my point of view, and then vice versa. And all those lenses and all those filters that take that information and change it on the way to understanding were preventing any real conversation. And what it ended up being is funny, is this is what I think the big example is. Like you talk about something like, oh, my HP is too low. Yeah. Okay, well, that's something we can both understand. What's that mean? Oh, I'm hurting. I'm out of energy, as opposed to, stop me if you guys have heard this before. Oh, you're just X. You're just doing X. You're just being X. And these kind of like statements that become more, I think, like value judgments as opposed to, yo, here's the situation. Yeah. Here's what's happening right now. How are we going to deal with this? Yeah.
And it really, I think, like, because we had this shared common language of video games and these types of things, it was really easy for us to take that and kind of remove all of the emotion and all of just the, like I said, it just like, it made sense to us. It's like, I struggle with chronic pain. I was having a bad pain day, and I could say, oh, my HP is really low because I'm struggling with this pain right now. Right. Instead, it was just like, oh, I just don't feel like it. Or I'm hurting too much or whatever like that. Because we both had this understanding of how much HP someone has and what happens when it gets lower, we were able to just look at it very differently. And so along with HP is, of course, MP. And so HP we kind of see as your physical health. Like, what is going on in your meat sack at this moment?
It's how close are you to death? Yeah, exactly. Not death, but death. Yeah. Like how much until you have a nervous not a nervous breakdown, but a physical breakdown.
Or pass out.
Or something like this.
So with that, again, there's so much, and we'll probably go into this a lot deeper, probably in the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of things you can do, of course, to build and lose XP or XP.
HP.
Thank you, HP.
So many terms.
I know, right? But Lobo Kendo just brought up sanity levels are critical.
Mm-hmm.
That we look at as MP. So your MP is kind of like where you are at, like mentally, emotionally. And this was one of the things that was definitely a place where it was really emotionally charged
mm-hmm.
and a real struggle for us. And this was like one of the things that totally saved us.
Yeah.
Was being able to understand the difference between MP, like viewing it as MP and knowing what MP is like and recognizing it in our own lives. So like, I feel like I'm like the honest one who's like, oh, I'm done this and this. But I am, I have depression and anxiety. And so it would be at that point in time, it was pretty much untreated.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would be struggling a lot with my own internal crap, which I call my bad roommates.
Yeah. That's a whole, we should probably do a whole episode on that. There's a lot to dig into that we're going to gloss over today to get us started.
And in future episodes, we're going to be going into it deeper. And of course, if you guys have any ideas, any suggestions, anything that you really want to hear us go into deeper, we will absolutely take those suggestions on.
Yeah.
But for this episode, we're just going to gloss over everything and just kind of go through the basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, especially if you're a person who's gone through or is going through depression, communication is especially difficult. It can be very difficult to understand what's going on in your head, especially for a person who's external, who may have never had experienced that before, may never understand it at all. You know, that person can care for you a lot, but they may not understand at all what it's like to deal with depression or anxiety or any other mental disorder.
Yeah, and there's so much stigmatization of that kind of stuff too. That like if you haven't dealt with it, it's often you have to learn a lot to get through it. For sure. But this is the kind of thing that cuts through a lot of that thing. But you were saying something about having depression and anxiety.
Yeah, and how it affects your MP. Right. So it's definitely a constant drain on your MP. It definitely 110% is. And so for me to be able to just be like, you know, you would ask me if I wanted to do something with you, and I would say, I just don't feel like it. Mm-hmm. Now, when you tell someone who you love or who you care about in any way, be it a friend or a partner or whatever, sorry, apparently our pool cleaner just walked by.
We're like, hey, windows open, we don't have any blinds or anything. Like, so we just moved in, so.
He's going to be there. You know, that can be hurtful just to hear, like, oh, I don't feel like it. You know, it can just, even when that person doesn't mean any ill will, it can just sound hurtful. I mean, that just is the way it is.
Well, it's like one of those things we were saying is like how many filters, like if you hear, like think about it from your own perspective really quickly. If you've been in this before, like somebody said something to you and you're going to take it through all your lenses of your experiences and your backgrounds and your sensitivities and your own baggage, right? I don't feel like it could be super devastating to one person, super fine to another person, but the context is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in this case, I think is like hearing that is like, it's a lot easier to go, oh, I'm going to take this in a personal way, or I'm going to translate this in a way that doesn't make sense. When if you hear, hey, it's not that I don't feel like it is not the statement, is I need to recover. I need to rest. I need to go to the inn.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. You're like, oh, hey, you're actually asking for help here.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and it's like when somebody you care about says, I'm kind of looking, I need some support or I need some help in a way that's like, you know, more neutral, a little bit more
by
like
saying, like
zoomed
my MP
out.
is low.
You can be like, oh man, can I help them with that? Because then, you know, let's get everybody back up to full before we pull anything.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And so that was a really big one for us. And I think we call those things that are those constant drains that actually helped us with additional language, like a dot.
Absolutely.
Right? This is a dot. Like depression's a huge
dot on your MP. So, you know, it's going to be one of those things where and so instead of saying something along the lines of, you know, I just don't feel like it, I don't have time for it or whatever, I could just be like, yo, my MP's low. I really just don't have it in me today because I don't have enough MP.
Right.
And that was easy to understand and way less, you know, potentially armed with, you know, just like hearing something that you're going to interpret in a bad way, even if that person didn't mean it in a bad way.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key is to
absolutely
is to try to basically decouple. So the whole point of running Westholm and the examples of HP and MP and dots and rest and all these things we're going to use is this is language that helps you get out of your head where all this filtering is happening that's probably not helpful to helping you be there for another person or helping another person understand how to be there for you or helping you break down what might be a really simple problem that has become really complex.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of the time, I think there's kind of a clubby, overused line in like relationship stuff where it's like, oh, communication fixes everything. Good communication fixes a lot. Bad communication makes many things worse.
A lot worse.
And so what we're trying to do is go, hey, what's a way that we all have these shared experiences with video games and different aspects of nerd culture that are just understandable and easily like really simple abstract frameworks that you can put things into that remove a lot of that kind of worry and risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's, if we have one mission, it's to help you take things that seem complicated and hard with relationships, self-improvement, growth, communication, and make it simpler. Yeah. Make you have an understandable framework. Make you be able to pull out and go, well, we're in the weeds here. Let's talk about it in this way. Yeah. And this has helped us. We want to say this because it's helped us a great deal. Yeah. It still helps us. We still talk about HPMP and dots, even though I think we've been able to use that to remove a lot of the scariness around that stuff. It's still super useful, and so the more we've been thinking about it, the more we were like, man, the more people we kind of like mention this to, they're like, man, that would really help. Yeah. And so we thought we wanted to do a show where we had the opportunity to help people with this.
And so that is, I think, like the first part of running Westholm is it's like this framework of conversation to have kind of back and forth discussions and to kind of give you these tools to have these communications. And then on the other side is giving you active tools to help you, what we call level up at life, and bring kind of self-development, lifestyle design type tips and things like that into the show as well, because that's something both of us are interested in. And we really feel like part of the idea of running Westholm is ideally, hopefully, getting the hell out of Westholm and onto the next levels.
You want to get to those good zones eventually, but the better you run Westholm, the better you'll be ready for those zones. Exactly. And this is something I'm not going to go super into, but I get a lot of it. This is actually really relevant for a lot of the questions I even get about career stuff, right? I get a lot of would-be hopeful designers try to help me or try to ask, hey, how can I do this? And a lot of my advice isn't focused on the raid. Right? A lot of my focus isn't on, here's how you get to be the lead designer of a big game. The focus is, let's talk about all the stuff I did before that. Let's talk about all that and how you can do that, because that's your Westholm. That's your zone that's going to get you there eventually. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where you need to focus if you're not raid ready.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And I mean, to be fair, most people aren't raid ready. There are some amazing people out there who are totally raid ready. They've got all their purple gear and they're doing real well for themselves. That's not me. I don't think that's you.
My shirt is representative.
Yeah.
I'm happy with dumpster fire most of the time.
But, we all aspire, or at least you and I aspire to, and we hope that some of you do as well. Well, I guess I would hope that all of our viewers would aspire.
Well, I hope all of our viewers do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the key is like that's the kind of like, not elevator, but like long-winded pitch of what we're trying to do here. And we really want to
That's our 20-minute pitch.
That's right.
Thanks for coming to our TED Talk.
Yeah, thanks to my TED Talk, why we're making videos on Twitch. So so I think that's what we really wanted to make sure you guys know what to expect, know what kinds of episodes to ask for and expect. We're going to be doing these weekly. As time permits, Saturday at 1 p.m. we might play with the schedule.
A little bit from here to there.
Obviously, this is going to be really iterative. That's the problem. You can't take the game designer out the game designer. I'm just going to be like, that didn't work. Let's try something different.
Absolutely.
So, but this focus will be our kind of like North Star.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like we were saying earlier, like if you have input, then we'd love to hear it. We always love to hear it. But yeah, I saw there was a couple of questions. So I'm going to pull up the thing and.
Do we want to do Q&A?
we can do a little Q&A, but I want to... why is the stream not working?
Oh, it doesn't seem like it's updating in real time.
It is not updating in real time. Boo.
Okay,
Boo
that's all right.
earns. Okay, so we're
We'll
going to we're going to look at really close here. Okay, so Really Geek says, I'm interested in leveling up. What kind of self-development tools are y'all looking at? So we are looking at potentially anything and everything. If there's something in particular that you really need help with, we'd love to hear, because I'm more than happy to do research on tools and things like that. Actually, one of the things that's really important to me personally, and part of the reason why I'm studying to be a life coach, which is a little bit of an odd, I went from IT to professional crafter to life coach. It's kind of a weird journey. But I want to take a lot of the stuff that's kind of seen as really woo-woo and bring it to a place where you can kind of strip all the woo-woo stuff out of there, kind of that weird bullshit, because there's a lot of stuff that's really great. Mm-hmm. So like for an example, tomorrow you and I are going to sit down and we are going to do something called desire mapping. And desire mapping is basically a process that you figure out what feelings you really want to feel, which sounds woo as hell. I understand.
The way it's delivered in the desire map stuff, it's super woo.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is strong stuff. But we did this, mm-hmm. And we've been doing it for 2 or 3 years at least. Yeah. Now at this point, and it has been like life-changing, and especially for some of our friends who are doing it, who did it with us, is, you know, for one of our friends in particular, it was absolutely life-changing. Like, he got a new job, he's doing so much better now. Mm-hmm. He's got all this stuff going for him. He started
managing his own mental health issues actively, right? Like,
and his physical issues, and it's just like he was able to use this process to change everything. But if I had given him that book at face value and said, "Here, just read this," there's no way it would have happened.
Yeah, I think to answer your question specifically, Worley, I think what Carolee's saying is absolutely correct. Is there's a lot of good tools on the market, but they're kind of really focus. I see. Uh-huh. I feel like there's a lot of focus out there where, you know, I'm going to say something perhaps spicy. I'll talk first and think second. This is great stream, guys. Is we call it, like, a lot of the self-help and kind of like self-improvement industry mm-hmm. is very what we call rocks in your bra. It's about chakras and like it has this mysticism to it, and I think that's cool if that resonates with you.
Yeah.
I think we're both too irritatingly rational for that. And so that stuff doesn't tend to resonate with us super well. But there's a lot of good, if you peel away the marketing and you peel away that layer, there's good tools of like helping your brain be intentional, helping you focus, helping you understand what's not important here. It's like, you know, and taking it and treating it as something a little bit more rational, a little bit more objective is something we also want to do.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, I think you should be able to engage in self-improvement, self-help, in these kinds of things without having to subscribe to a particular type of social circle.
Or like even a particular like ideal set or something of that nature.
Exactly.
You know, obviously you want one of your ideals would obviously be self-improvement mm-hmm. because that's what you would be trying to do. But I think, there's a lot of like requirements with a lot of that stuff. Like you have to do this and you have to believe this. You kind of have to understand this. And I think for us, so much of wanting to do that is like stripping it out and getting to the really deep goodness, the rock inside of all of that, mm-hmm. and being able to bring that back into the group and be like, hey guys,
right?
Like there's a lot of stuff that I didn't even think about, but I was like, I don't know if it'll end up being a show or a blog or anything like that. But like recently I was watching a video about Marie Kondo and the life-changing magic of tidying up, mm-hmm. which is a small little book. There's a lot of crap in there that, you know, if you'd rather be reading comics, you're not going to sit down and read it. Mm-hmm. But there's goodness inside there. There's a good rock of, you know, a nugget of goodness in that we can find once we get through all the other extras.
And I think there's also something that's good about the both of us from a tool set perspective is we both really learn differently, and we really resonate with different stuff. Like Carolee's a pretty deep researcher. She likes to dig in pretty heavily. She likes to she's studious, I would say, is probably an active thing.
That's true. Yeah.
I hate that. I'm like, go throw me in there, and I want to go get it wrong a bunch of times, and then I want to watch what went wrong. I'm like basically like
it drives me crazy, by the way.
Yeah, and this is like, but that's normal. That's two differences. She reads the instructions first. That's right. But and I'm sure as many of you as there are, there's as many learning styles in there.
For sure.
I think a lot of the things that happen right now in the self-help community are catered to a small window of that, where we hope to extract a little bit of that out and make it so it's like, look, you don't have to learn X or Y way. Here's some tools.
Yeah, here's some tools.
You know, we're going to be
asking Cliff Notes version of it too.
Right, and we're going to be asking that instead of telling you this is exactly what you do, which is a really design style and it gives you a lot of answers. It does have that. It assumes a lot about the reader. Yeah. It assumes a lot about the viewer, and we want to go, hey, here's this tool set. And, you know, your interpretations might be different than what ours are exactly. Yeah. But we hope this is useful for the way you see the world.
Yeah.
Where you're at. And the other thing is meet you where you're at. Everybody here is at a different point on their journey of relationships, self-development, communication, career. Self-discovery. Who am I? What do I want? Purpose, which is really like, isn't that really the end goal? We don't want you to have to come to where we're at right now. We're at a different spot from our experiences. Where are you at?
Yeah.
Like, how can we bring the tools down or up to where you're at in your journey currently and make sure they're still useful for you instead of being like, are you 30? Are you a 37 and 40-year-old couple living in West Los Angeles? You know, it's like, no, okay, that's not going to make sense here. Let's bring this to where you guys are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's going to be a critical thing. And that's why we really want as much input as you all are willing to give, so that we can kind of guide the show in a way that's going to help you. Because really that's what we want to do. Like that's what this is about, is we have these skills and we have these tools and we want to pass them on. Because like we said, it took us from on the verge of divorce to, honestly, we're super happy in our relationship.
We're doing well, which is
now when we just had our 8th anniversary.
And that's not
anniversary.
I think the key about that is it's not free.
And I think we're just about 10 years, almost to the day, of us starting to talk online.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, yeah. But I think that's the key, is like, this takes work and it takes intentionality. And so relationships, one quadrant. Any quadrant in your life takes this kind of intentionality and work. You know, if you look at everything and you go, I'm pretty happy where I'm at.
Yeah.
You know, great. We might not be super helpful for you folks. If you're like, hey, I'd like to have this a little better, or man, I'm really in the weeds about X and Y, and I'm not feeling great that I'm doing X. We hope to be really helpful for you.
Yeah.
So, so I think to summarize this really quickly, just to
take it back together,
because we're pretty rambly, as you probably noticed over the last half hour. One, hi, we're here. We're going to be here every week. We're glad you showed up, and we'll be here every week.
Yes.
2, we have frameworks and language that's associated around gaming and nerd culture that we think make hard discussions with yourself and others easy.
Yeah.
They make them manageable. They make them understandable. They don't take the emotion out. I don't think that's correct. But what they do is they make the emotion desensitized to the conversation.
Yeah, so it kind of detaches it.
Yeah. And we think there's a certain value in trying to make something that's very personal and subjective and unique, objective, understandable, putting it out on the table. Yeah. And so we're going to be bringing a lot of information like that. The HP and MP is an illustrative component of that. We'll go into a whole episode on what those things are, how you recover, how you manage, how you discuss, how you heal other people, yourselves, things like that. And then we're also going to go into more subjects basically around not just relationships, but your career and self-growth, which often those other things like, I have these goals like career and lifestyle and all these things are symptoms. And this is my own framework I overuse probably to be called the Hydra. And the source, we always sit there and lop heads off the Hydra all day trying to fix our problems, and it keeps growing new heads. How do you get to the Hydra and actually slay it and deal with it? Exactly. And I think there's a lot going on there. Like, what are the root causes?
Yeah. And I think even with those types of, for many career issues, like a problem might be communication.
Right.
Or understanding others, or all that type of stuff. And those could be things that are actively hindering your career advancement. And hopefully this will be something that will help you kind of understand better, or give yourself a potential framework to have better discussions with other people.
And I think there's a couple of methodology. There's even a couple of big qualities to this. Like, I think the different struggles you and I have had in our professional lives is mine. I've kind of done one thing for 12 years and I did another thing for 12 more years, right? I stick to my guns on what I'm doing. The purpose isn't the hard part, but managing, how do you get good at this, and how do you manage your feelings around it and things like that, and how do you focus? That's been my thing, where yours has been more, would you describe it as like finding that purpose?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say it's definitely like, if you are a deep diver, I swim around on the surface. Like, I think that's another big difference between the two of us, is I love to like try out new things. And when that can be a career or whatever's going on, it does mean that I've often been the person who's like, what is my purpose in life?
Which is why you've had so many adventures.
Absolutely.
Which has advantage, but it's like, these are two, again, another example of two very different perspectives and outlooks, where this is still the framework to pull out.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
So, cool. I think with that, we got through some of the content a little faster than I think we wanted to. So I do think we should, maybe there's a good opportunity here for us to go, what do you think? You want to go deeper into HP and MP as a start? Do you want to save that for a whole episode? Do you want to do Q&A? I think half-hour Q&A might be a little long.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Half-hour of Q&A for us on our first episode is a little bit long. But yeah, I think we can probably go deeper into what HP and MP is, and kind of giving you an idea of some ways to help you get back. And so one of the things that we were talking about earlier on was dots. You don't want more dots in this case. It's not a good idea.
And more dots is bad.
But one of the things that we were talking about is depression and anxiety. That's more of an MP one, but you could call it an HP one as well.
Right. I mean, I think being sick is a clear example of an HP dot.
Yeah.
Being overworked and not sleeping is a dot. Dots, the way we define, there's a couple ways you can look at damage, if you can look at HP.
Yeah. I think you just pulled what I was going to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's direct damage. Direct damage is inciting events, as I call them. It's like, you take a nuke, right? If your hit points are 100 and you take 30 from this one thing, your boss yelled at you.
Yeah.
You and your significant other had a fight. You're overworked for today. That's a direct damage thing. You're like, my energy was okay, but this thing hit me and it's kind of knocked me back a little bit. But it's over, and that will recover. Those tend to be bigger chunks, but they're one and dones, right? This is the traffic was bad today. Things like that that's a low nuke usually. Well, depending if you live in LA or New York City, maybe a high. Where a dot is something like what we're talking about is I feel like dots maybe, and you tell me if this is accurate, because I feel like this is a perspective you can shine some light on, tend to have a certain degree of, I don't know if this thing is going to wear off soon. Or maybe you do know it's going to wear off, but you look at it and it's almost like looking at the timer of the duration of the dot makes you even take more damage. Right? Like, I don't know. You've had a lot more experience with this. What's your take?
I think that I like what you said, where you're watching it tick down. Because that is kind of how
it's kind of like looking at your own buff bar, almost like in this meta sense, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like with some of it, sadly, especially with HP, I feel like there's a potential that those dots will be forever. It could be like a thing, like, for example, my depression and anxiety is forever. It's just something I'm going to have to deal with. Oh, yes. Thank you, Berserka.
Thanks, Isaac. I appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
We should probably be more definitional.
I know. We're so bad about it because, like, for us...
We assume you guys all get that.
It's kind of like, exactly. We're kind of glossing over it because we know or hope our audience.
And feel free to ask if you're like, what's a dot? What
if you have any questions, seriously, just put them in the chat. And I do have the chat here and it's finally updating. So
awesome.
So we're good to go. Like for example, and my depression and anxiety is also a dot on my HP and my MP, because it does create situations where like, oh,
that's unfortunate.
That's unfortunate.
I'm sorry. All right, I think somebody's knocking at the door. I'll be right back while Caroline explains.
Okay.
First stream.
Woo woo. Necrotic damage is a dot, correct? Yeah, absolutely. But it can kind of play into both, and so I'm trying to think of some things that would be really easy boosts. Oh, thank you very much. There'll be really easy boosts to your HP. We're all good? He's back already. No time at all.
No problem.
So, some ways to identify dots. I think it takes a lot of self-awareness, a lot of kind of looking at your life and recognizing what those things are that are bringing you down. Right. And I think that's not a fun or cute or maybe even a sexy answer, but it is, I think, the realist answer. Like if you notice consistently that you feel really shitty after you talk to somebody, there's probably a good chance that person is a dot on your life.
Right. And there's a lot of outcomes. That doesn't mean, screw them, right? It might.
It can mean,
it might
screw
mean that. But a lot of this is like, for anybody here who's interested in the design side of things, like I'll bring this, and I think you should bring a different perspective, because it's not useful for everybody. There's a certain level of root cause analysis that's really important with this. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things about Westholm is, let's say you're in there and you know what, you're not progressing where you want to. Yeah. Or you're like, am I ever going to get out of this zone, man? You want to look at why, what's happening here. It's like that you feel, it's easy for us to focus on, I don't feel good, or I don't like that person, or my boss an ass, or something like this. These are what we see. These are what we feel. This is the damage you're taking. You see the damage number pop up and it says boss is a jerk, right?
Or it may not say. You may just be like snap and you get hit with something and you don't know why.
Right. Yeah. There's some level of clarity that's not greatly clear on the symptom level.
Yeah.
When you get through it though and you go, why does this keep happening? Why is this happening? Always sit and ask why and take that time for reflection. And maybe we should talk about that might be the tool we want to deliver the most. A tool we want to deliver is how do I catch this in my busy life, in my busy day where I have all this stuff happening? Yeah. How do I find the time? Yeah. The answer is it doesn't take that much time. But looking at what that root cause is, if the root cause is, I would say a dot has three qualities to it. It is pervasive, it's persistent, it keeps occurring, it has a patterned source. You can always tell there's a pattern to the behavior of what's causing this damage each time, every day. Every Friday when I go see X, every day I have a review. Every day, me and my wife fight about X, or my spouse, in this case, sorry. Every time, the kid cries too much, or, these are little things like, okay, what's that mean? What's that mean you're not getting? Where's that damage coming from? And instead of like trying to heal through a dot, I don't know if you've ever tried to do this, it's an endless task that's awful.
It's horrible.
You want to try to remove this dot or let it fall off in a good way, or understand that it's going to fall off so you can account for that lower HP or that lower MP over the next time that timer is going to kick. Yeah. So I think it's really about sitting there and going like, what's the caster? Yeah. What's the source here? As opposed to what's the dot? You want to understand where it's coming from so that you can address where it's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very important way to differentiate that, because it's like, yes, the attack exists, like that dot exists. But where is it coming from? And realistically, the best way to do that is, and I think, is either self-awareness, or I shouldn't say either. I think it's self-awareness enough to recognize that that's what's going on. And then some sort of way of tracking that. If you notice that it's like, oh, okay, every time I do X, I feel Y, that's a good thing to note somewhere.
That's right. And I think we might want to do, maybe the episode as we explain, doing this live, is we'll talk about HP and MP today. And maybe we'll talk about how do you identify casters? How do you find these guys how do you find these entities that are putting dots? And Worley, I love the question. What if you were the cause of your own dot? I would say 75% of the time you're casting your own dots.
Yeah.
Very
intentionally or unintentionally.
Usually unintentionally,
Yes.
right? But I think that's the reflection is the caster, it might be you.
Mm-hmm.
You might, or, there's two ways you can do it. I don't think it's good to feel, I think one thing that's really problematic is thinking that there's a lot of people out there casting these negative spells on me and they're bad guys or nobody really does that. Like some people are really assholes and that's its own case. But most of the time, the intentions aren't there and this stuff is occurring.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, you could be the cause of your own dot from actually like, what are you trying to do that's causing all this damage on you?
Yeah.
Or you could be putting yourself in the way of dots that you don't need to. You're actually going up to a monster's cast range and going, and it's casting dots on you. And you're like, why did I do that? Why am I in front of this monster? So there's a lot of ways to look at what are your behaviors and what are the things you're doing that allow these dots to stack up? Why are they not clearing off? Why are they not getting healed? Where do you need help? Where is it on you? And I think one of the things we believe on Westholm, and one of the things we believe as people, is you can't control how you feel. Yeah. You don't get to control if you're happy or sad in a day in a lot of cases. You can always control how you behave. You can always control and modify your perspective.
Yeah.
That's where your agency comes over your own or others' dots. It's never about this stuff happens to me and I guess I deal with it. It's what can I do?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because what other options are there?
Yeah, exactly. Realistically, with a lot of this stuff, while it may be happening to you, you're still responsible for that damage. Like, because it's damage being done to you. I mean, you're taking on that dot. It's your damage being done to either your HP or your MP. And, ultimately that is your responsibility to identify, fix, or learn how to deal with.
Right.
And I also want to bring in a fact that, not all dots are bad. Maybe, if you think about it, any relationship that you have would be a dot of some kind just because you're dealing with another human being, and that's difficult and messy.
It's hard.
Just like dealing with you is difficult and messy from time to time. So is dealing with other people. And so you can think about it, that can be a dot.
Right.
Having children can be a dot. Your job could be a dot. And it's like, it may not be a big one and it may not be a bad one. I think that's the way that we think about it is it's like, you definitely, you think about, damage over time, that's bad. But I don't think you're coming into, or you're leaving every day with all your HP. Sleep is a heal over time. So when you get out of your day, you hope that you'll get enough heals during your sleep to get you into full HP and MP.
Or other things, like there's a lot of ways to restore health that I think we'll go into maybe later or next time.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I think some dots are, like, think about, let's pull this back to the Westholm framework, right? You're going to get through this zone, you're going to start at level X and you're going to get out at level Y, right? That's what you're trying to do. It's unbelievable if you were playing any RPG that you didn't take any damage.
Right.
You got all these levels, you didn't get them for free. The work and the challenge is the damage.
Yeah.
And I think it's not about saying, I think there's removing all damage means you'll never level up.
Yeah.
Right? But if you go, where's the damage coming from? Am I pulling a bunch of random monsters that aren't part of my quest? Am I doing the same quest over and over again and not getting a lot of value? Is the damage you're taking coming through in this way where it's like, okay, well, it's in service of this thing that's actually important to me.
Yeah.
I think one of the things about recognizing casters and people what's casting dots on you is understanding the value you're extracting out of the interaction you're having. What's the purpose? What's the intentionality? Like, here's two examples I think we faced in our life, right?
Okay.
Is some person is causing a dot in their friendship relationship with you, right? Oh man, I get home and I feel really drained after talking to that person. They're, whatever is happening there. Now, that could be either a good or a bad thing. You're like, this person who I really value, who's been, part of this, they're part of my life for this reason, in this way, for this value, is important to me. And sometimes they're hard to deal with. That's one thing when you want to go like, how am I going to manage that? But you probably still want to be attacking. You still want to be doing that quest, right? You still want to be there. Or they're there and I kind of don't understand why I'm going through this. I don't understand what we have in common or what our shared goal or whatever your decision making paradigm is for that.
Yeah.
That might be a bad dot. You're not getting any XP, but you're taking damage, which is going to prevent XP in other places.
Yeah.
That's the kind of places where you understand, where am I at in the zone right now?
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to something like, for example, where, maybe a friend of yours is going through a rough time. And so that person, you're, maybe taking those dots to your HP or MP just so that you can help support them. But as you support them, you're building a stronger and stronger relationship with that person. And when you are in need, they will be there for you. And so then it would be a positive hit to your HP or MP.
That's right.
The other thing I was thinking of when you brought it back to the whole Westholme idea is it's like, yes, you will eventually leave Westholme. But what happens when you're not taking damage anymore? It is possible to get too high level. And I feel like one of the good things about those kind of hits to your HP or MP, it's kind of important, is that you recognize that you're still growing. You're still headed in a forward trajectory and you haven't stalled out.
Right.
Because it can be really easy to sit on your laurels in a lot of ways where you're just like, okay, I've got this under control and this under control and this under control. But, if you want more or better, you have to always make sure that you're going through those battles to get that XP.
Right. I think there's another zone I imagine in my head, and this is another street nearby our new place. So, by the way, the Valley in Los Angeles has a bunch of RPG names for streets. It's really crazy. So, I always imagine the level before, the zone before Westholme, the noob zone you spawn in, is called Brookhaven.
Brookhaven.
It's nice and it's green
so
and it's a really nice introduction and everything. This is where you start in a lot of cases. Whether your background is good or bad, the possibilities are still endless and your expectations are low.
Yeah.
But Brookhaven, if you stay in Brookhaven, you won't take damage, but you certainly won't level up.
Yeah.
So I think that's another important thing. I'll probably come up with like 5 other zones that are based on streets around here. I'm sure that are like, what's the end zone? Whatever. But I think that's the key is like you don't want to avoid damage. I think Vex says it right here is HP and MP are a resource you have to spend to get loot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Maybe loot's its own concept from XP. I like that actually. What's optional versus what's required?
Yeah.
Because loot, well, it depends on the game you play, but loot is more exciting maybe than XP. So anyway, that's a whole thing. So I think that's right. Is like the takeaway here is like recognize where your dots are coming from.
Yep.
Look at the caster. Should you be engaged with combat with this entity? Is this where you need to be right now, or is this wasting your energy or time, or the value you're getting 2 XP per kill over here, and they're doing like half your damage every time you do it?
Yeah.
Probably not super good ROI.
Yeah, not gonna
and you really want to pull it out to this level for yourself, especially. I think the best place to have these conversations about HP, MP, and value and XP is with yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's going to be different for every single person. Like I said, so like for me personally, having a child is too big of a hit to my HP and MP, and it was just a decision that I ultimately didn't make. Right. But for a lot of people that I know, they are totally excited to go on that adventure, to take on that quest, and to raise children. And so, like, what works for one person may not work for the other person. So definitely don't see this as like a blanket statement as like X, Y, and Z. I mean, I think we can all agree getting a cold is probably a pretty shitty way to take a hit to your HP. But, that's why we want you to really take a look at these dots and say to yourself, is this something that's worth it? Is this something that I want to continue doing? Is it important to me? Is it getting me, am I reaching goals that I want to reach?
Right.
And is it getting me in the direction of those types of things? So that's really why I think what you were saying about assessing the dots is so important. It's really, really important to take note of them, see what they are, and make sure that they're getting you in the direction that you want to go in.
Right. I think there's the most complicated. There's a complicated example of a caster in this case that I want to talk about, because we don't want to make it act like it's clear cut. Like these dots are good, these dots are bad.
No.
Yeah,
life is not clear cut in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Despite what Twitter says. I think one of the things to really look at is when dots are painful and feel like bad ROI in the now, but are going to be good when you kill the boss. And maybe, Vec, I like what you're saying about loot, is maybe what you're doing is like, actually my XP damage ratio is bad, but there's loot. Yeah. And I need that loot, or I want that loot bad enough that I'm going to take through this. I call this the job. This is the real life example. This is the job you really don't like.
Yeah.
Either you don't believe in the company's purpose. This isn't the path you want to maintain for a long time. The boss is a jerk thing. I call that one out as somebody who's been lucky to have pretty good bosses, but I know it's something a lot of people deal with.
Yeah.
Is this dot worth it, right? And when we sit down and look at that, is this just a job I'm doing to pay the bills? It still might be worth it because the dot of not being able to pay your rent is larger than the dot you take from working at this place. But you probably want to start making that dot smaller and smaller over a long term. Even if you're trading down dots, that's still reducing damage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the loot at the end is like, if I just get this boss down, if I just get this quest finished in a year, I'll have what I need for my resume to go try to do a higher level quest for myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's valuable. Yeah. You don't want to ignore those dots as like, I hate it, so screw it, right? Yeah. Like that's it's tempting to do so. So you really want to look at this the short-term damage for the long-term value.
Yeah.
Right? It's, again though, if you're just doing it, and this is the thing I think to be very, very suspicious of. If you're doing something and you can't understand the intentionality behind it, you're like, well, I guess I have to. That's a real good place to assess a dot and see if you can get it off your plate, because that seems like it's probably not serving you compared to the damage it's doing.
Yeah, I think also shoulds. You notice that you're saying a lot of shoulds, like I should do this or I should do that, or I'm doing this because I should, or even if you're like, oh, I have to do it. Like there's another thing that's like, always assess whether or not you have to do it.
Right.
Like,
and sometimes you do.
Sometimes you do. There's a lot of times that you do. But I think it's really easy to get stuck into that mindset where it's like, oh, I have to do X this way, and even if it's doing damage. So if you do find those hots, take the time and really look at them and say, is this something? And, there's a lot of mindset that you can do around that as well. Because like with the thing that you brought up where it's like, oh, okay, this job right in the second now doesn't get me where I want to be, but it gets me where I want to be in X, Y, and Z time. I think that you can reassess that and really look at it and be like, oh, okay, I can get a positive mindset around that. I know people who, they're getting close to retirement. They'll like put up a little like how many days left type of thing just to keep them kind of, or towards a vacation or something like that. You can do that for this as well. I'm screwing up my iPad. Okay. It's good. We're good. But it was just weird seeing my own face like underneath my line of vision for a second.
Like a dog.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
is this mirror?
Who's in this mirror? But yeah, and changing your mentality around that can turn it from a big dot into a smaller dot so that you can really work with that, and deal with it and try to find other ways to kind of move around it.
I think I actually have an experience I want to share about that I think is relevant for my career standpoint. Is my very first job. So again, my background for anybody who doesn't know, I didn't start in game development until I was 27. I'd done service work before that. I haven't gone to college. I was reasonably to pretty damn poor for most of my time, up to and including this couple of years I'm going to talk about. But my first gig was doing contract QA on the Xbox 360 for Microsoft, right? The rumors about QA are generally pretty true and it not being a great place to work. The hours were long. I had to commute 2 hours each way on the bus. And, the pay was bad. And that was the only job I've had where my boss has been a jerk. It's the only one, right?
You're pretty lucky.
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky, honestly. I try to be easy to get along with. I hope that helps a little bit.
I think
but
it does, for sure.
But either way, this job, if I look at it really objectively on paper compared to even waiting tables and stuff, was not an awesome job. But it was really important. And so I had a couple of options when I went into work every day. I could sit there and go, I can't wait until I get done with this fucking QA stuff, right? And have this kind of attitude. That's going to increase the dot. That's going to lower my resistance. And that's going to make it harder and harder to get through the quest, right? But in this case, I went in there and there was a lot of challenges. And I was like, I have to take this stupid bus ride every day. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to read some books. I'm going to play Advance Wars for way too many hours on the bus. I'm going to nap, and I use that time a little bit more wisely. Shrink the dot. I got into work and recognized there was interesting stuff to learn here about something I was interested in, game development. Like, hey, how does this whole process work? What do developers care about when I write a bug? Like, what are they looking for? Even if I don't want to be doing this long term, I'm going to care about that at some point. That gives me some insight. This is a really interesting subject now, even if I have to do all this weird process to get there that I don't like doing. It's fine because the loot at the end is worth it. Mm-hmm. And so that perspective helped me get through a couple of years of what would have not been a very fun set of jobs. And I think at the end of the day, probably helped my performance because I'm not sitting there they're not trying to drag my ass through this job. And I'm like, I'm showing up and kind of doing what needs to be done. Yeah. I think, I call that the bear hugging. That's another way to put it. It's Absolutely. Like, you get into it and you go, look, this question in front of me, I can sit here and mope and complain and avoid it or not do it or kind of drag through it. That's not going to help, though. Mm-hmm. I could look at it and go, maybe this isn't ideal. What's cool about this? Yeah. What's interesting about this? What am I excited about? What have I tried before here? Or, who could I meet here that I could have a good friendship with? There's so many ways, depending on what motivates you, that you can bring in. The perspective is very powerful for limiting the effect of dots on you if those dots are a choice.
Yeah, especially if those dots are a choice. Right. Or even if they're not a choice. I mean, realistically,
that's true. Actually, they might be better if they're not a choice.
Yeah, exactly. You get shit happening to you. It's gonna happen one way or another. Like I said, you're gonna get sick. You're just gonna get sick. You're gonna get a cold. You're gonna do whatever. It's like, if you see it as, oh, I'm sick, here's all the things I can't do. I can't do this, I can't do that. I'm not gonna take very good care of myself. Whatever that ends up being and the way that you approach it. Or you could be like, okay, I'm sick. How can I make this awesome? Like as awesome as it's going to be realistically. Like it's not going to be a fantastic vacation or anything, but maybe that's a time you get to rewatch your favorite show. Right. Maybe that's a time when you like really eat good food that you love.
Or you get to catch up on sleep. Anything,
catch up on
honestly.
Sleep, yeah.
Luckily, if you're a gamer, it's like, that time I can play video games and get away with it because I'm sick. So, there's a lot of good ways to take positives out of even the negative. And I think that's a really important skill to be learning to go through anything tough because othersoss it's going to drag on.
It is really a trained skill. It's really a trained skill to kind of be able to look, that positivity muscle, to sound really goofy, is something that you have to train. You always have to be like, okay. And it's something that you're going to have to train yourself to do. I've done it. I think you've done it. It's not easy. No. But you have to kind of stop yourself in those moments and be like, okay, I can clearly see I'm looking at the negative side of all of this.
Yeah. And it's not natural. Humans, again, this is all stuff that if you just leave your brain on autopilot, this stuff's not going to happen. We're not like natively evolutionarily suited to do this.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's pretty much the opposite.
Yeah, that's why we have to work on it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean...
I think we had one question from Whirligigs.
Yep.
Go ahead.
What are our favorite ways to restore HP and MP meters or remove dots?
You're probably the expert here.
So, am I? I don't feel like I am. I feel like everybody has their things that they like to do.
I feel you're better at this.
Okay. So one of the things that I love to do to restore my HP and my MP, but that's very bad for me, is I eat. Which is probably a dot as well, because I tend to eat pizza and stuff like that, but I'm trying to be better about it. I'm lucky enough, we have 2 dogs, with hopefully a third on the way. Mm-hmm.
A little nervous.
He's a little nervous.
He's a big boy.
He's not much bigger than Fanny.
Okay. Anyway, sorry, tangent.
Either way. Yeah, like we said, there's gonna be tangents. Prepare yourself to kind of like wrangle us back in. So if we don't see your question or something, feel free to ask it again. A third puppers. So we might have a third puppers coming in a couple weeks. But so I have our 2 dogs, and so sometimes I just need to sit there and cuddle a dog for a little while. And that really, I find, restores a lot of my MP. I've got a very nice husband who I can cuddle with if I need some help. It's those types of things. And removing dots for me, I think, has been twofold. One is taking better care of myself. So, like I said, before my depression and anxiety wasn't treated, I've gone with my doctor, and I'm on a good set of medication now. I'm feeling a lot better. That has been a huge dot that I no longer deal with. I mean, I still, I get a normal level of depressed. Like if something bad is happening in my life, I'm going to feel depressed, and but it's a normal, manageable amount of depression and anxiety. Mm-hmm. Normal. So, I had to put that in air quotes because everybody's different. And then the other thing is, like we were talking about, is being able to look at the positive side of things and being able to see the bad stuff that happens to you in a positive light. you know, it may end up being that the only thing you can say is, I learned not to stick my hand on the stove again. You know, like, what did you learn? Don't put your hand on the stove. That's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, don't do that thing anymore.
Yeah.
How about you? Did you have any that you thought of while I was talking?
I think for me, I think there's the two kinds. I think we might want to talk about this, is dark heals might be a thing where it's like you're giving yourself health back, but you're paying out of some other health pool.
Oh, okay.
Like that's eating pizza, or for me, it's like if I play video games for 8 hours and don't get anything done, what's stressing me out is I didn't get anything done, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think be wary of dark heals, and you're gonna have to use them sometimes. Indulgence is, I think, important for sanity.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a moderation component. I think for me, it's been a lot of understanding that. I think Whirligigs brought this up earlier, is like what happens when you're casting your own dots.
Yeah.
And I find that I'm casting a lot of them are on myself. And for me, a lot of them is the thing, and I still have just figured this out. This might be something we go through on this journey, is figuring out when I'm casting my dots. Really good. Like, I think it's this other thing. It's actually me just sacking health every time I cast a spell here. Why am I doing that? Like, it's probably some internal perspective, belief structure, outlook, something like that that's modifiable, that I actually don't care about. It's actually not an identifying piece of me. It's not like, I believe that something important. Like, no, it's some random crap that's on the back end that's driving a bunch of my decision making. When I figure that out, that can remove dots in a big way from me. For managing the ones that exist, I'm really good at going, okay, this is happening. I'm going to think the coolest version of this I can.
Yeah.
I'm going to see this in the most positive light I can. And it's a trained skill that I'm really good at this point, to where it's like, if you hit me with a crisis,
almost like in an annoying way.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm like, okay, we know what's going on. Here's what we have to do.
Sometimes I'm like, can you just please have a reaction?
And I'm like, no. Like, it's probably if its own problems there, but it works for me to keep things manageable.
Yeah.
It helps a lot. So, and your own tools will be what you need. I think also there's a third method that we didn't talk about, and this is about having a good guild, which is something we'll talk about.
That's what we're talking about in another episode for sure.
Sometimes you need to get a dispel or a heal, and you need some help. Yeah. I get in that way a lot of times too. I'm like, I'll ask for a heal really directly from Carolee. Even my coworkers, my friends, I'm pretty open chest about a lot of stuff. I just say what I'm feeling, and let that be what it is. That helps me a lot to not bottle it up, and to get the support I need when I do need it. Hopefully then being able to have enough health and MP to give other people support when they need it.
Absolutely. It's really important. Yeah, and definitely one of the future episodes, probably pretty soon, because I think it's a really big and good important episode to get into, is your guild, the people who you have around you. And you may have heard it said where it's like, you are the average of the 5 people closest to you. If you're the average of the 5 people closest to you, you might want to take a really close look at the 5 people who you're closest with, because, that can be a dot. Like we were saying, where it's like, maybe the person that you're helping, will be there for you when you need help, but there's a chance.
Sorry, I kicked the thing.
Kicked the cart. But there's a chance they may not be. Like, you may be sinking time and effort into a relationship that ultimately isn't going to pay out, and you may know it's not going to pay out. Right. You may be in a bad relationship with somebody and recognize that. And if they're in your average, they could be dragging that average down quite a bit.
Yeah, we'll go into that, but it's like, if you imagine the difference between a toxic and a good guild in an RPG, imagine that. Yeah,
exactly,
life, right?
Exactly.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So the difference between people arguing on guild chat or not arguing on guild chat is huge.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we are out of time.
You think we're out of time? We are. We've got a couple minutes over, but if anybody has any last questions, we'd love to hear them. Also, thank you to everyone for all of the follows. We're very, very thankful to everyone who's followed and helped us out. How you deal with Baron's chat?
We might have to do a whole episode on
that's
how
a whole other
chat. You need a good guild. What do you do
about
people who aren't in your guild?
What do you do about people? Yeah, I really like that idea.
I like that. That's a good one.
Thank you. That's definitely one that we're going to look into for sure, because I think that's a whole other can of worms. What do you think, like, maybe a short answer would be for that? It's just kind of like,
I don't want to give a short answer. I feel like it's a conversation.
I feel like that's a hashtag 2009 New Year, New Me vibe around that, where it's like learning to block out what other people say and what they have to think about you. Yeah. I think is such a huge mind shift change.
Learning to mute Baron's chat when you need to.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the short answer.
And that's not an easy thing to do. Kari Safari. Yes, there is going to be a YouTube channel for all of these, which will be, I think it's underneath in the panels. Mm-hmm. So once we're done here, I'll download it and try doing the uploads and stuff, because I don't think we're going to do a whole heck of a lot of editing to this. So if you missed the beginning, you can either watch it on the VOD back or watch it on YouTube. Cool, you found it. Excellent. Awesome. Are we going to be doing this every Saturday? That is our goal.
Yeah, we're going to start with every Saturday. This month's a little weird. We have a vacation at the end of the month.
Yeah, we have a couple of wonky things. So, like, I want to say that the second week of January, we're doing it on a Wednesday at 8 p.m. Again, Pacific Standard Time. So it'll be a little bit weird that week. And then the last week of the month, not the last, but like the week of it's like Wednesday, it's the 23rd, it's the 24th, 25th, 26th. Mm-hmm. The 26th, we will be coming to you live from Walt Disney World.
We thought it'd be cool to do it on location.
Yeah, so we're
gonna do it at a different time.
Yeah, we're gonna do it on location in Orlando, Florida, and I think actually that episode's gonna be special because I think we're gonna have a special guest. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And follow at Run Westholm on Twitter, and we'll probably do most of our updating on Twitter. Obviously, me and Carol Lee will be basically spamming it like we have been on Twitters too. So that's something for us to for you guys to do, to follow us. Again, a lot of this is going to be kind of like in flight. We're learning how to do this. We're building the plane in the air here. So let us know if something's not working or you're like, holy crap, this sucked, or I loved this. Yeah. It helps us a lot to figure out how to
feel free to reach out with us either on Twitter or wherever you found us, because you all found us from somewhere. So we really appreciate you stopping by. Really appreciate this.
Yeah, this has been
a lot
awesome.
Of great questions, a lot of good stuff going on. Thank you for coming along on this journey with us as we like you said, as we build this plane, as we fly it. And yeah, just to reiterate, if you have anything that you want us to talk about, we're more than happy to bring it up. Yeah. Or try to, at least. We may not be experts. That's the thing. It's like neither one of us are therapists or doctors. So we're just giving out the advice of many years of trying and failing and trying and succeeding and
stuff I wish people taught you in school and they don't, which is sad. So it's like, we will.
Or even just stuff that people wish you would talk about. Mm-hmm. Like so often there's things that people just don't talk about. Like I was talking with another person about like what relationships are like now once you get into your 30s and how different and weird it gets. Mm-hmm. You know, and nobody talks about that. And then all of a sudden you're there and you're like, oh, well, damn. That's right. Now I have to figure this out.
Yeah, so I think it's been awesome to have you all here. Thanks so much for showing up and coming with us on this journey of starting this channel off. We really mean it when we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you next week here, and we'll see you online in the interim. Bye, everybody. Bye. Thank you.